Okay, so we're now recording. Does anyone have any questions from last week before we get started on this week?
Is the presentation available anywhere?
Last week's?
No, this week's.
I'm sorting it. Don't worry about it. It'll get there eventually. Okay. I did put a thing into the chat saying I was waiting on the module coordinator getting back to me, so as soon as he has. You'll also have a lab, even if I have to write one myself by the time we get to lab time. So don't worry, you'll have something to do.
Impressive.
Anything else from last week?
Are we going to go through last week lab as we did the other week?
Is there something from last week's lab that you'd like me to go through?
Yes.
Do you want to give me a hint?
The third question.
Hang on, I'm just bringing it up so that I can see it.
That's the one with the random number generator.
It's what, sorry?
The one with the random number generator, and like you have to guess, and then it has to it has to tell you how many guesses you took.
Right, okay. So just as a virtual show of hands, how many people struggled with that one? I'm trying to see if this is something that I should go over with everyone or whether I should just wait until the lab and do it with just one or two that need it. So a quick virtual show of hands for those that would like me to go over this whole thing. And I'm not even looking at names, so you're anonymous here. Right, okay. The numbers are creeping up as people have actually realised that I've been asking a question. So you put your hands down. What we'll do is we'll do the same thing as we did last week. So I'll not go over it here. But the start of the lab, we'll have a sort of short tutorial and we'll go over last week's question 3 with everybody. Anything else that you want me to go over? Or anything else that you're not sure about from last week? No, all okay? All right.
I really like the fact that like the presentations are voiced, it gives me some sort of guide. I like that.
The online ones, yeah, Jerry. So I do with recording this, as you know, so you can see the presentation with my voice, but it's actually good to listen to someone else because they have a different take on it, a different spin, and it's actually really handy to give you a different perspective. So it's worth listening to Jerry's commentary as well, definitely. Okay, if there's no questions then, what we're going to do this week is to have a proper lecture, by which I mean this week you're going to hear from someone that actually knows about this stuff. And I'm speaking really slowly because I've just realised that I'm the only presenter. And given that Pablo is going to do today's lecture, I'm just having to quickly promote him to lecturer status, which I have done. Pablo, you set to go?
Hi, Tony. Yeah, I'm now the presenter.
Okay, thanks, Pablo. I will I'll mute myself and sit back and enjoy the lecture.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I'm going to try to share my screen. So, this one. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Pablo. I'm going to deliver today's class, the lecture 6, which is about functions. So first of all, let's see what is a function. Let's see the definition of a function. And if you go here, we can read that functions are self-contained blocks of code which normally perform a commonly used task. Okay, so let's read it again. Normally perform a commonly used task. Let's see an example. Okay, I'm not sure. Can you see now the screen?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, got it. So I have put here just an example. So imagine that my boss has asking me to do a program to just say hello to the students of this class, okay? So I have created here just 6 lines of codes, what are the easy ones. So in the first line, I'm getting the name, okay, using the input of the student, and as I'm just doing a pretty print, okay, to say hello. So if I do this, okay, it's asking for my name, okay, my name is Pablo. Press enter, and that's all. Hello, Pablo, good morning. Work done, everything works, perfect, I can go home. But my boss tell me, Pablo, I guess that there are more than 1 students in the class, okay? I say, okay, no problem. I can copy this, copy, and paste, and do it 2 times. My name is Pablo. Hello, Pablo. Another name. My name is John. Hello, John. Good morning. Everything fine? Well done. I can go home. I have finished. And then my boss tell me, Pablo, as you understand, there are more than 2 students in this class. They are about 70 students. Wow. Okay, no problem. I can copy this 70 times. You see? No problem. I have time to copy this 70 times. Okay, and then I send this program to my boss and he says, are you crazy? This is not productive. It's not productive, not about your computer. Your computer nowadays can allow more than thousands and thousands of lines. It's different in the 80s. In the 80s, I present this kind of program, I will be fired for sure. So let's read it again, the definition. The definition in a function is a self-contained block which normally perform a commonly used task. Okay, so as you can see here, say hello, good morning, for me, in this case, it's a common task, right? So let's try to do something even more productive. Because imagine that my boss says, oh, that's fine, but I don't like these symbols here. I prefer a question marks. You see, this is much more nicer. So I should change the 70 different lines of codes I have here just to produce a different print, you see? So let's see how can we do this a little bit more efficient. Okay, we have our piece of code here, our common task, and we are going to wrap this common task, these 6 lines of code, in a function. So first of all, how can we define a function? So we have to use this def, okay? So this acronym will say the Python interpreter that we are going to define here a function. And this function, now we have put a name of the function. So the name of the function can be, for example, say, hello, that's all. We use this parenthesis to put parameters inside. But we don't need it here, okay? I will explain the arguments that can be inside of a function that we can pass to a function to do something with them. But for now, just remember that we should put parentheses at the end and a colon, okay? So now, everything I put inside of this function will be part of the function itself. But as you know, in Python, indentation matters. So I have to put 4 spaces. Let me put this a little bit bigger. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces. Okay, and now I can print whatever here, and it will be part of the function. Why 4 spaces? Well, I like to follow the Python guidelines. And if you go to the Python guidelines, which is the PEP 8, okay, there are kind of recommendations. And if you go to the indentation, you can see that use 4 spaces per indentation level. Okay, so I will put 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And someone will ask, can I use a tab? Well, you can use it, but let's see what Python says. Tab or spaces? Spaces are preferred indentation method. So let's use spaces. What I have done, for example, I'm using the tab to put 4 spaces. So this is the better combination. You can use the tab, but at the same time, you are using spaces. Okay. So let's put our lines of codes inside of the function. Okay. I need to put here and here. And I need 4 spaces. Okay. Everything inside of the function must have an indentation. So everything which is 4 spaces inside of the function will be part of the function. For example, this final statement, which is printing this line, not part of the function, part of the function. Outside of the function, inside of the function. Okay, got it? So what do you think that I will print if I run this program just now? Can someone tell me what I will see in the output?
Nothing.
Any suggestion?
Nothing.
Nothing.
You need to call a function in order to.
Okay. Okay. Let's see how the interpreter in Python works. The interpreter goes one by one. Okay. It reads the first line. The first line is empty. Okay. Do nothing. Better. It goes to the second line. Nothing. It goes to the third line. Nothing. Nothing. And then in the 5th line, it says this mark, def. Wow. There is a function here, but nobody is using this function, right? Because a function needs to be called, and nobody is calling right now this function. So nothing, 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 nothing. Oops. Now I have something here, which is a print statement. So I will do the print statement, and I will print these hyphens, okay, this line. You see, if I put this final statement, 1, 2, 3, 4, can someone tell me what I will see right now?
Nothing.
You're right. Now I will see, because do nothing, do nothing, do nothing, do nothing. Wow, this is a function, but nobody has called this function. So pass, 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 and I will see nothing. You see, there is nothing here. Okay. So first tip that you have to remember, we need to call that function. How to call a function? That's easy, just to put say hello. Okay. Say hello, parentheses. That's all. and I will see that now I'm calling the function. So I can say here, Pablo, I will say, good morning, Pablo. It's okay? And now this is more usable. Why? Because my boss told me that I have to do this 70 times because we are 70 students in the class. So 70 times, no problem. But if I want to change this, for example, I will change it just once. Now I'm going to put this, for example. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, 6 times, 7 times. So my name is Pablo. Good morning, Pablo. My name is John. Good morning, John. My name is Alice. Good morning, Alice, and so on. Okay? Of course, we already know that we can use even something more efficient to do this 70 times, right? Rather than copy 70 times the function. So we can, for example, use a loop for, okay? For student in range. Do you remember the range function? Now we can use it. How many times? Well, let's see. Let's put here, for example, a 70, because we are 70 students. And now we have to use the same 4 spaces that we are using in functions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So now the interpreter will go do nothing. I will wait. Nothing, 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 nothing. Oh, for a statement. I have to do this 70 times. Okay? So now I can do this. Let's start with 2 times because I guess we don't want to print this 70 times. Okay, so name, this is Pablo. Name, this is Alice. So, okay? So now we know how to define a function, how to wrap a common use task inside of the function, and how to call that function to be executed, okay? So let's think, for example, that my boss tell me, I can just comment this now. The shortcut, if someone is interested, the shortcut is control right slash, okay? Or command right slash for Mac users to comment everything just at the same time. So for example, now my boss tell me, okay, Pablo, I want something to convert a number in its absolute number. You see, for example, let's see, wait a second. Here I want to see it. Okay. Okay, sorry, I was not reading the chat. Now I can read your comments just in case. Tab is something that cannot be changed in Python. Well, you can use tabs, okay, in Python. Mass comment. Oh yeah, the mass comment. Yes, exactly. As Tony said, for example, this is Visual Studio Code, and you can, for example, do this Control Shift and then using spaces. Okay, so you can go here and you can configure your tab to put 3 spaces. For example, and now I have press tab. You can see it's 3 spaces. Okay, but because Python guidelines say 4, I'm using 4. Okay, this is depending on the IDE. So yes, how to do a mass comment. Mass comment, you select what you want, okay? And you press Control right slash or Command just slash. You see? So it's Control plus right slash, okay? If you are a Mac user, Command plus right slash, Okay. Well, going to the point. Now my boss tell me that you want, for example, actually, this shortcut works for almost every IDE. So it's working in Visual Studio Code, it's working in PyCharm, it's working also in Sublime Text. There are other shortcuts that are not working in every IDE, but this shortcut, it works for almost all of them. It's a common shortcut. So, okay, the function. I want to create a function now which converts a number in its absolute value. So I'm going to create in a function. That's the reason I'm using def, and I want to create to my absolute function, okay? Because I can put the number I want. It doesn't matter. And now I open this parentheses. Do you remember I told you that we can use arguments to send it to the function to use inside of the scope of that function? So for example, here I'm going to use an argument called my name, my number. Okay, no problem. This is just an argument that I can use now here inside of the scope of the function, which means every time if I'm 4 spaces with the orientation of 4 spaces. So now I can say, for example, if my number is lower than 0, okay, I'm going to create here just a temporal variable. So my absolute is 0. Okay, this is just a normal variable which I defining like a 0 in the beginning. Okay, so now if my number is lower than 0, my absolute number will be equal to my number minus 1, okay? So this will convert a negative number in a positive number, and I will save that positive number in the absolute variable I have declared here at the beginning of the function, okay? Else means that it's already a positive number, so absolute it's equal to my number. That's fine, okay? And now we can return the value. How we return values? Yes. Write in return, and what I want to return is my absolute number. That's fine. So let me show you just this as an example of how to create functions. So first of all, the mark, okay, to tell the interpreter that we are going to declare the definition of a function here, the name of the function, and possible arguments of the function that we want to use. And we finally can return or cannot return anything. So in this case, we are returning something. What we are returning our absolute value, okay? You have, okay, thank you again. So now, can someone now tell me how can I call this function? What should I write right now here? Nobody knows?
My absolute function.
Number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number.
My absolute function. And now here, as you see, I'm using the parentheses again, to send to this function here, to send here, a value. So, for example, minus 30. Okay. Let's see if this actually works. Sorry. It works, but we are not printing the result. Okay, so now we will print in the standard output the result, which means this value, okay, of our function. Let's see. Oh, okay, we have the number 30, which is what we wanted. What happens if it's not a negative number? So it's a positive number, it's a positive number, no problem. So if my number, which means the argument I'm passing through the function here, so it means this is now 30, okay, is lower than 0, my absolute value will be that 30 per minus 1 to convert it in a positive number. And if it's already a positive, it doesn't matter. It will put my number in the absolute value, which is already a positive number. I will return that value. So returned value, it's equal, okay. Just to let you know that what I get when I call in this function, it's the value I put after the return statement, okay? So here, I can print my returned value. You see? So let's see the minus 30 again. Let's play. You see 30. Okay. So this is fine. It's a mathematical function that we have just created. So let's go for the other functions that we want to use, and let's create all of them. That's crazy. We don't want to spend our life creating functions, mathematical functions, or very commonly used functions. So you are lucky because the main developers of Python, they are really nice guys, and they have created a bunch of functions that are already magically inside of Python, and you can use just writing it here, okay? Just calling here from your program. So these functions are called built-in functions, okay? Which means built-in functions? It means that they come with Python. They are there. You can use it. And if you go to the documentation, well, as you can imagine, surprise, surprise, print, it is already a built-in function. I mean, it's a very common function that we are using every single program, and we don't want to implement our own print, okay? Can we implement our own print? Of course, we go to any program, and I see, okay, definition, my own, sorry, here, my own print, and I will get here a text as an argument, and I want to print here my own print, which starts with this, and then a text. Sorry, because now you can read it. Okay, so this is my own print. Okay, and I can use it, but Python is providing us a bunch of common functions that we can use just as in a simple way. So if you go, for example, to the documentation of Python, I'm going to share with you this link because I guess it's a very important link. Okay. Let me put here this link. Actually, allow me 1 second, not this link. Okay. Doesn't matter. Okay, it's now in the chat. And you can see here what the Python developers have put inside of the Python for us to use. Okay, so as you can see here, we have print, and we have, oh, you see, apps. What does that mean? If you go to the documentation, because that's just a tip. Now that you are learning how function works, before you become a good programmer, you have to become a good reader. So you have to read documentation, understand documentation, and then implement. So that apps does what we have already done. It returns the absolute value of a number. So we were reinventing the wheel. I mean, sorry. We were writing our own function to return the absolute number, but we have here a magic function, which is called apps. Okay, and we can pass the -30, and this will magically works. Okay, 30. So let's use the functions that the main developers of Python have already implemented for us. So I'm going to show you some of the functions that you can use. You can go also to this web page, where is the Python documentation. Just take care that you are using a proper version of Python, so 3 point whatever, but don't go to the 2. So, for example, this one. And let's see some examples of built-in functions. Okay. Let's see again. Better. Okay. Let's comment this for now. Okay. Okay. This code is also in the slides, so once you get the PowerPoints, you can also read this again. Okay, and do your own tests. So here, for example, we have defined some variables. This is a string, okay? So just a text, a number, an integer number. This is a float number. This is a negative number, and this is a list, okay? Okay, this is a list of numbers. Let me show you. Okay. I don't know why. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess that this is a list now. Okay. So, as we know, we have the print function that we have said that this is a built-in function. So, Python provides you this function for free. You don't have to pay. They are there for you. So, let's see how print works. You already know, but if you go to the documentation, sorry, and you go to print, you will see different ways to use print. So, okay, print, what does is print objects to the text stream file, or in our case, the console. Separated by sep, if you want to use it, because by default, it's a blank space, and followed by n. If you want to use it, it's here. You want to put something at the end, you are allowed. But by default, exactly, by default, the separation is an empty space, and by default, we have a return at the end of the sentence. So let's use print. Now we want to use print to print this, okay? It's our string. As an argument for print, I'm passing this string. So if I print this, I will see I'm a lumberjack and I okay. As the documentation said, we can use, for example, another string. Oh my God. And say hello, for example, because we can separate different statements of the print. We can use as you see here, sep, to separate between values. So we have two values here, with the first value is there, this one, the second value is just hello, and we want to separate them by using, for example, 3 hyphens. And we want to end statement, as you see here, and it is used to append it after the last value, okay? By default, is a new line, as we saw in the documentation. But now we are going to use end to put just end, okay? So we will see here now the first argument we are passing to the print, which is this sentence. Then we will see the second argument, which is hello, separated by 3 hyphens at finishing with the end. Let's see if it's true. Yes, first argument, okay. Okay, separated, the separation is the 3 hyphens, and then hello, and at the end we will see end. So it's just to read the documentation and use functions that are there for us in the way we want. So for example, another built-in function is the absolute number that we have already seen. So in this case, we are getting the number 3 variable, which is -23, and we are printing using the name as whatever, comma, second variable. So we are still inside of the print, okay? So that's the second argument for the print, comma, another argument for the print, gives, and then comma, and we call the function abs. And the abs return the absolute value of the argument. So we are expecting to see a 23 here. Using the abs number 3 function on -23 gives us 23. Fine? So we have plenty more functions to test with. For example, diff mode. What does diff mode do? Well, diff mode, it returns us, let's say, is a number over another number, which means a division of 2 numbers, and gives us 2 different values, which is the result and the remainder of that division, okay? So how I know that? Well, because I went yesterday to the documentation. You see? I went to the diff mode, where it is, ABCD, diff mode, okay? And I just read the documentation, diff mode, and it's expecting 2 different arguments. And it says, take 2 non-complex numbers as arguments and return a pair of numbers consisting in their quotient and remainder when using an integer division. Okay, let's apply it. Let's see, sorry, not this. The division between number 1, which is 145 over 5, okay? The division of these 2 numbers. So, using the diff mode between 148 over 5 gives us 29 and 3 as a reminder, okay? You can do it in paper if you are not sure about this, the results. So, what else? Okay, the function len. Let's see the documentation. Not here. Documentation is here. We go to len here, and we read. Return the length, so the number of items of an object. Okay, so it's going to return us an integer number, which means the numbers of items that are contained in a list. So can someone tell me what we are expecting to get when we call length for list 1?
7.
Let's see. I have not called them. Exactly, 7. Okay? So built-in functions are basically read, 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 and read. So before you create a function, you have to think, okay, let's see, maybe Python guys have provided me any built-in function to make my life easier. Let's use it. So you can go to the documentation, see all the built-in functions we have, and use them, okay? There are a lot. Okay. So there are more functions, of course. Here, let's test these ones. So this one is the round number, which is rounding the number. You have a floating number. It will provide you the rounded number. So in this point, for example, for number 2, which is 1.623, the round number would be, can someone tell me?
2.
Okay, why 2? Because the number that goes after the decimal point is greater than 5. Okay, so usually it's doing it's rounding that number depending on the name after the point. And we can see here that there is another round, but this round is taking 2 different arguments, and you will say, oops, 2 different arguments. So why? I don't know. Let's read the documentation. We need to go to the documentation again, go to the round, which is here, and see. Oh, it gets a number of digits. Return the number rounded to number of digits precision. So it means that if we put 1, it will round this number. So the next number is 2 after the 6. So we are expecting 1.6. Okay. Exactly. So the first number is rounded up to 2, and the second number is 1.6 because we said that we wanted 1 decimal precision. So it's the number after the 6, the one we will get the round. Okay. Okay, so more or less, you now get how the built-in functions works, and you know that you have to go to the documentation to use them, because there are some functions that allow 1 argument, other functions allow you to pass them 2 arguments, so depends on what you want, you can use the function in a different ways. So the best approach is to go to the documentation and read the possibilities that you have for a specific function. Okay, so okay, now we are going to see the second type of functions that we can find in Python. They are called external libraries. Let me go to the external libraries. Here it is. Here it is. So what's a library? A library is just a collection of functions and methods that are designed to perform many functions without you having to write the code for yourself. So it's the same that the built-in functions, but they are not there. They are not already there magically in every program you write. You have to import that function. So that means that if you want to use, you have to import the library. If you want to use a function which is in that library, you have to tell in your program, okay, I want to use this library, and now I'm allowed to put or to use the functions that are inside of that library. Okay, for example, the library called math. That's nice because we don't have to implement all the math function for ourselves. That would be crazy. I am not a good mathematician, so it will be like a nightmare for me. So let's see what math, the library math can provide for us. So for example, here, math, math includes the function sqrt, which means the square root, okay? So we can do, for example, go here. Okay, let's use here. Okay, so I want you first of all to see how we import libraries, okay? This is the library math. So at the beginning of the program, we have to import that library. And then after that point, we can use that library. And what is this library? We can see it, no problem. There is no magic here. We can go to the math library. This is the math library. And if you see here, the math library is inside of Python, standard libraries, and then you see the interface of the math library. And you can see here all the functions that have the math library. These are the definitions, okay? So you can see, for example, the arccosine, the sine, degrees. Let's see, the factorial number, the gamma. We can use all these functions that it will take for us like 4 years full time to implement this. This is already done. So we can use it just importing here this library. Okay, so let's see an example. Here we have an example. I will want to calculate the square root of 16. So if we print the result, okay, we use, that's important. If we want to use the math library, we have to indicate that we are using this library. So math dot square root, and then the number as an argument that we want to calculate. So the square root of 16 is, let's see, well, it's 4. That's perfect. We don't need to calculate it. So here we have, for example, another example of what math can do for us. We can use math to get the number b. That's correct. Let's see. Oh, yes, it has the number b here. Let's use it. And then we can use math to get the cosine of that number b. Okay, it is called, now we have called stick. So my cosine will be, let's see, -1 in radians. Okay, so what happens if we want to do the same in degrees? No problem, because math functions, of course, allow you to use the function degrees, which will convert you the radians numbers to a degrees. Yes. Yes. P, it's like, it's a constant, I guess, and the square root is a function which is inside of the math. Okay, so now we are saving here the value of the stick, but in degrees, because we are using the function of degrees with convert angle x from radians to degrees. Okay, you can see here the documentation. It gets a number. So we are passing as an argument the math.p, so the number p in radians, and we are converting them to degrees. So if we press play, we will see here that P radians expressed as degrees is 180. Everybody knows that, right? What else? Well, math functions contains a lot of functions. You already seen that. You see, you can use all these functions. All these functions. So, for example, the factorial number. What's doing the factorial number? The factorial number is doing 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 of the number up to reach the number we have set. So the factorial number of 4, it will do 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 to get our factorial number. Okay. So this is not magic. I mean, let's comment all of this. I don't want. Okay. Let's put this in the box. Okay. We are using this factorial because we have imported math, which is a library that contains this function. Can we do libraries? Of course, why not? Imagine that we want, for example, here in another file, and we call this our own library. And we are going to define a function which is going my own factorial. Okay, and it gets a number, and we return the and we can do here, for example, a for loop in branch number, okay, and then okay, this actually will not work because we cannot, if we multiply by 0, we will get at the end a 0. So we can put here a 1. Okay, and we will loop, we will iterate the number of times. Actually, this is not correct. Okay, I have to go by 1. Well, actually, it should be correct. Well, the point is we can actually call this from our example as well. We can import our example 1, which is the place, you see here, example 1 is the place we have create my own factorial number, and we can import example 1 and use it here as my other fact it's equal to example 1 dot my own factorial. I pass here the number 4. You see? So libraries are not magic. Libraries are just a place where some developers have created a set of functions to allow us to use them. By meaning that we don't have to redo all of those functions. I don't want to write by myself all the math functions in the world. I want to use them to get for a purpose, to create a program or to do something that someone has told me to do. Okay, so the factorial number of this is 24. Okay, 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 gives us a result 24. So now we know how to use built-in functions. We know how to use exactly, Enrique. In programming, there is no magic. Everything is at some place. I mean, if I import math and can use factorial, it's because someone has created that function at some place. And now I can use it, but the function is there. So now we know how to use the built-in functions. We know how to create, how to use libraries. And what else? Well, let's see. Exactly. That's an important note. So when you are using a library, it has to be followed by a dot, and then you will see all the options in that library. In this case, is the math library. So exactly, magic is coffee. Actually, what I was telling to you, if you want to be a good programmer, you will discover that you are going to spend 80% of the time reading documentation or reading code from others or your own code. That will be the 80%. The other 10% will be writing code. So if someone says, wow, and the other 10%, well, the other 10% is going to be drinking coffee, for sure. So as I was saying, exactly, if we use math dot, you can now see here, this is in Visual Studio Code, but I'm sure in Python, PyCharm is the same, all the functions that we can use. Okay, we can use the poll. Okay, let's see, return power number. This is the base, this is the number. So we can use poll base 2 or base 16, whatever. The point is that you can see here, once you press the dot, all the functions that are implemented in the library. So remember that we create in a library of one function in our example 1.5. So let's import example 1. Let's try to use it here. And we put example 1 dot. Oh, just a function, my own factorial. You see? And if I go, you can see the function itself, the one we created. Okay? So by using the dot, so the library dot, you can see all the functions. Okay? Exactly, math p, math cosine, math degrees. Okay. So now we know how to use built-in functions. Exactly, Roland. Exactly. Okay, we know how to use built-in functions. We know how to use libraries. And now these functions are very handy, but what happens if we cannot find a function which exactly matches what we want to do? Well, we just have to write our own functions. So if we have the chance to reuse a function that someone has done for us, but not someone, I mean the Python developers or a trusted developer, not to go to a Stack Overflow, you know, it's because Stack Overflow, 90% of the times are grown. You cannot trust in everything you read. You can trust in official documentation. So we can create user-defined functions. So, okay, here, for example, it's an example of create a program which will count and display the total number of letters in a user first name and surname. Okay, any piece of code which is likely to run more than once is a candidate for inclusion in a function. Remember at the beginning of this class, a common task should be wrapped in a function. Then we can reuse it every time we need it. Exactly. Okay. Let's try to do this example. Okay. It's create a program which counts and display the total number of letters in a user first name and surname. So let's go. And let's create our own function to do that. Okay. Let's close math. We don't want to mod math for today. Okay. Okay, yeah. Let's create it from scratch. I guess it's going to be more productive. So let's forget this. So okay. The question tells us to create a function which is counting letters. Okay. So first of all, what we need to create a function? Can someone tell me what we need to, how to define a function? What's the keyword we have to put at the beginning to let the interpreter know that we have a function there?
Def.
Yes, exactly. We use def. So we are going to define a function, and we can use every different name of the function we want. As I put here in the sample, I put count letters, okay? And we are going to receive here an argument, okay? This, so now it makes more sense. So count the letters of what? I don't know. I guess it's going to be a kind of string, right? A name. So let's put a text. Okay, remember always the colon. And now, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? We can use a variable to see how many letters it's in this test. Okay, so let's call it number of letters equals to what? Does someone know how to count the number of characters that are in a string?
One.
Yes, yes. This is the point that we can use the built-in functions to see if someone has provided us a handy function to use. As you can see here, okay, the function len returns the length, number of items of an object. Okay, so we are going to use that functions to count the letters that are in a text. Okay, and we can just return them. So what is going to happen if I press play right now? It has to execute this code. Can someone tell me what's going to happen here? Nothing. Why? Why nothing? Say again, sorry.
You need to run the function.
It's doing the function, but it's not returning anything.
We need to call a function.
It's actually returning something. It's actually returning, exactly. That's the point. Someone needs to call this function, because if you remember, line number 1, do nothing, do nothing, do nothing. Oh, here it is a function, but someone has to call it. So do nothing, do nothing, do nothing. We need to call the function and print, for example, the result if we want to see something in the display. So we can call letters and put here a name, for example, Pablo. So let's see. Something is not working here. Sorry. Why? Because we read the documentation of len, but we didn't use it. So now len is counting the number of characters that it contains this word, and is returning us here. That value to be printed, okay? It should work. Yes, 5. Pablo is 5 letters. So, but we want also the first name, but we want also the surname. So, any suggestion?
Call the function twice.
Call the function twice. You mean this? Let's put an example here. For example, my surname.
Can we add the
Well,
paragraph?
I was gonna print it, obviously.
Well, if we print it, yeah, let's see, we printed, no problem. We printed this. Do we have the total number? I have 5 and I have 5 because my name and my surname both have 5 letters.
If you put like your surname into the initial string, will it count the empty space?
Yes. 11. An empty space
Alright.
is also a character, okay?
So
not
separate
there,
like
but-
Pablo and Salva as 2 separate strings, right? In the same print.
Or you
Okay,
can
what we want to show here is to display the total numbers. So we want to show an integer value. I mean, we want to see the number 10, right?
If
So-
you put Pablo plus Salva, I mean in the same print.
In the same print. You
Pablo
mean
plus
this?
plus Salva.
Okay. Yes, that will work. That will work.
Could you
But
replace the plus with a comma?
if I put this,
no, because
it's going to
the
be wrong because we are now we are not inside of the well. We are not calling the count letters functions. We get just one argument. It's expecting one argument. If we put a comma, we are sending
it's 2
different
arguments. Okay.
arguments.
Yeah.
So
Makes
it
sense,
will
yeah.
break. We can use a comma here because this is the print function, but we are now inside of the. If you see, can you see I have my parentheses, my rounded brackets in different colors? This is very handy because you know where you are. These purple parentheses are for call letters, and these yellow parentheses are for the print function. So to the print function, I can send another parameter I want, for example. You see. So what I will see here,
five and the 6 A's.
yes, exactly, because I have get the value of that function, which is 5, and then comma in the print A. Okay, so the result is 5 A. Okay, so the point is, if number of letters of a name it's equal to input name, that's all. Okay, and we do the same at surname. How can I print the total number of the letters in the name and the letters in the surname? I guess I will check every chapter if it's not E. Guys, now it's easy. I have here 5, I have here another 5,
Maybe if you say print parenthesis num name comma num surname. Num name comma num's name.
Well, you see that what I will get there.
It's a string.
Ah, it's a string, so it's a plus.
Well, actually, I mean, guys, we are not using this yet. You see, I'm going just to print a name and a surname. So I want to use the function. Let me help you a bit. If I use print count of the letters of this, okay? Plus. Let's use the function again. S name. For example, this will be as an answer because we are getting here 5, we are getting here 5, or whatever the user has entered, okay? And we are printing the sum of the two values, okay? So whatever plus whatever, it will print us the total number. Okay? Let's see. There are plenty of different ways of doing this. For example, what I did before was this. Okay? Another tip, if you want to move a selected code like this, in Visual Studio Code, you can use Alt, okay, and the arrow. Okay, now we are in line 1. So we get the first name input. What's your first name? We get the second name. What's your surname? Oh my God. Now we count the letters of the first name. When we count the letters of the surname, and hi, your first name is this, your surname is this, and you have this count plus this count letters in your whole name. Muhammad, you were almost right, because we could do that if we add a parameter, an argument extra in our count letter function. Okay, because you are exactly, count letters doesn't allow 2 parameters. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is a way that you will read in the, it's the same I did it in the last step, so you will have the chance to go step by step and understand the function itself. Okay, this is also a good thing. What happens if I want to return not just one number, for example, as the counting the letters in a name or counting the number of the letters in a surname, but I want to return from a function 2 different values? Because if you see here, I can return letters, right? What happens if I wanted to return something else? So a common answer is to put all the variables that we want to return in a list. So you see here, for example, okay, you have 2 numbers, 12 and the number 3, and we want to do some kind of calculations with that numbers. Okay, so we express that we are going to use an argument called n1 and a second argument called n2. This is our function. So everything which is 4 spaces on the right of that function will mean that it's part of the function. So this is part of the function. What are we doing? Well, we are doing a summatory, number 1 plus number 2, a subtract, number 1 minus number 2, multiplication, number 1 per number 2, and a division, okay? And we want to return all of those values. A good way is to put all of them in a list. You see, sum, subtract, multiply, and divide. So, for example, let's go step by step. We have here a function which is doing basic operations, okay? And we are returning every single operation in a different element or item in that list. So we call calculations with the number 1 and the number 2, which is the 3, which means that we will have here a 12 and we will have here a 3. Okay, it's the same. But we are using these names just to understand that here inside of the scope of the function, we will use the n1 as the label, okay, as the placeholder of that value that we are passing when we are calling that function. So what do you think that if I do this? Okay, what's going to happen here? Anyone? Can someone tell me what's going to happen here? If I print
numbers,
I'm going to print a list, because what's the type of this? If I'm calling a calculation function and it's returning me a list, the first question will be, what's the type of this variable? Can we know it? Yes, let's see. Let's use the function, the built-in function type, to see what's the type of this variable, okay? So we are here nesting built-in functions. We are doing a print, which is a built-in function, and we are printing the type of the answer list. Type is another built-in function. So let's see, what's that? Oh, it's a list, okay? So if we print a list, we will see a list, okay? With the values 15, 9, 36, and 4.0, which is the sum, the subtract, the multiplication, and the divide, okay? So what happened if we want to see just the multiplication, for example? How can we do that?
Take them out of the return.
you need to put the parentheses 2 after the answer list.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. We have to use the index because we have here, okay, we have here all these values. The index number 0, the index number 1, the index number 2. We want to print the index number 2. Is this a list? Let's use it. The index number 2. So we'll see just the multiplication, which is 36. Okay? So this is very handy if we want to return more than one value. Okay? Because there are some functions that, for example, this function is not just doing a summatory, it's also doing all these values. Okay? You can do in a different way. You can create a function just to do a sum, a different function to do a subs, okay? Let's forget this for a moment. So this will return sum, and this will return subtract, okay? And we can then call these functions in a different way. So the first one will be calculations, which is num1, comma, num2, okay? And then we can do the same, but with subs, okay? And you will get a function which is doing something and a different function which is doing another thing. So you are getting these values in a different way. But if you want to create a function that gives you more than one result, in this case is one result, in this case is one result, but in our previous example was many results, we can wrap them, we can place them in a list, okay? So I guess that now you more or less understand when you have to create a function, which is when you are repeating code. So the better way is to create a function and call the function as many times as you need. You know how to use the built-in function, which is go to the documentation, read if there is something that I can use and use it. And now you know how to use libraries, which is the same as building functions, but importing in our program that library. So you can go to the documentation of that library and the same, read the functions that are being provided for us and implement them. Excellent. So, well, yes, before the next week, you should complete the lab sheet and also learn a part of CPR, just in case you have pets. This is very, very useful as well. That's all for my side. So I don't know, you have any question? Do you want me to repeat something or to point something else?
Could you demonstrate Parrot CPR?
I don't have a parrot here. I'm so sorry. I will do it. I know the theory. I know the theory, but I don't have a parrot. Anything else?
When will we be able to download the PowerPoint?
Well, I don't know. I read that it's already in Teams. I don't know. Can someone?
That's the lab. I'm not sure if the
It's the
presentation
lab.
is there.
Sorry. I don't know. Tony maybe knows if he's
Yeah, and
waiting
I've
for the
contacted the module coordinator. I'm waiting on him getting back to me. As soon as I've got it, you'll have it.
Okay. So that's all. I don't know if you want to. Shall I present the lab, or we will see the question labs during the lab? I don't know what's the way to do it.
Okay. What I think we'll do, if it's okay with you, Pablo, is rather than go straight into the lab, I think we'll take a break first. So what I'm going to do just now is turn off the recording in case anybody's got any questions that they don't want recorded. So I shall do that now.